All right, so we're back, and I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. And then Todd and James, you guys are free to share your webcam. Yeah. Okay, so here we all are. And James, I want to make sure I can hear you, James O'Hagan. Make sure you're not on mute. No, you're just self-muted. So you can unmute James. There you are.
Yep, and I'm getting there I am. Hi.
Hi. So I should probably share my webcam too for this panel discussion. Okay, here we go. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Great to
So
see
here,
you again.
I know. We miss being on the road. We really do. I don't miss airports. My sister was in an airport recently and said there were people running around uh, threatening to basically beat you up if you didn't have your mask on all the time. And you weren't even allowed to take it down to eat a hot dog or anything. So it's just, America's crazy right now. Let's get over it. Get over it. Um, okay. So, the thing is, both of you guys, I admire both of you so much. James, I know you've been doing such amazing work. And I really want you to share some of that. And maybe within the context of this first question for both of you. And Todd, I sort of asked you this, but I'm going to give it a bit of a twist now. Education is sort of becoming the network, right? It's a node now in the digital universe, which means you're going to have to brand yourself because the options are huge. And I don't like this about myself because sometimes I sound like one of the debate prompters where I'm going to give you like a big diatribe before I ask the question, but it's okay. I'm basically saying, the future is becoming, your own sort of digital brand. And you have to do that because we may be in a universe now where there's going to always be some kids that are remote and some that are online. And they have options. We know this because we watched the private sector markets, as soon as quarantine started happening, jump about $1 billion in spend by American families. They were looking for everything they could find. And some of them have opted out entirely. Tons of districts have lost thousands and thousands of kids. So how do you be? And so what is your vision of that future? How are you digitally branding, and what are the things that give you a really positive digital brand? And James, I'm going to ask you to go first because you're going to probably talk about the cool stuff that you're doing as part of the digital brand for your district and for what you do. So
Well,
go.
there's a lot of cool stuff. So two ways I guess I could answer that. Two aspects that we're tackling this. Number one, the virtual program that I oversee, where we service not just students in completely online environments, but we also oversee credit recovery. We also see hybrid options. We were very supportive in the remote option and helping our staff make the digital transition. But our mission is we make virtual personal. And it is such a hard thing for people to do. It isn't just putting kids on a computer for 6 hours a day and having them watch a teacher lecture them the same way that they would before. That is just a transfer of what we used to do. What we've done, especially now because of COVID, is that we've really opened up, I guess you could say, this has been the excuse we've had to open up our toolbox and say, look, here is all the awesome things that we can do to help make virtual personal for our families. And a lot of it is meeting kids where they are. It is not using the traditional, again, 6 hours a day. The hardest thing right now I've found for parents isn't that their kids are learning in different ways. The parents are really struggling with, what is my role? And so my role as the director of the digital program has been more on the line of helping parents navigate this time right now, having one-on-one conversations with parents. I have one family who really has struggled with the traditional learning model the last couple of years. They have one child who is very neurodiverse. Actually, both their children are incredibly neurodiverse. And what's been fascinating for me to see is that when we started this journey together as a family and as a partner in all of this, curriculum is easy. We can give them all the curriculum, but it was teaching and helping the parents understand that their children needed to have freedoms for things like, when they start their day. That a lot of it was their issues with these neurodiverse children was issues of control. And these children were fighting the controls that they were under at school. And what was really sad for me to hear was how these parents who I talked to said they were ready to just throw this school year away. They were ready to just, they knew it was, they in their minds, they came and said, this is going to be a complete dumpster fire and we have no other way to do this. And what's been great is how taking them through this journey and helping them to normalize, I guess, this new experience for them, it has made their family so much more peaceful because there isn't the end of the day meltdown. There is not the one of their children goes on red, as they call it. There isn't that happening anymore. In fact, I got a lovely set of photos yesterday from the family because they went out for a hike. Things that they would never have done in a million years. And again, I know we're talking a lot about the ways we can design these things, but making that personal connection, helping parents to navigate this time, I think has really been part of the secret sauce that a lot of companies miss on, because they want to sell you the silver bullet. They want to sell you the curriculum or the online teacher or whatever that. And really all of this, especially with some of our youngest, our elementary kids and our middle school kids, the ones who really need these social connections more, it's how are we building these? And to segue, one of the ways that we are doing that is through digital play spaces. Minecraft has become an amazing space. In fact, recently I read a story about how therapists are meeting with some of their clients in gaming spaces, and they're co-gaming together, oddly enough, to play games like Call of Duty, which is a very violent game, but they're talking through issues through gameplay. So I started to utilize Minecraft as a space where, rather than telling the child, hey, we're going to talk about your coursework, but turn off the computer so we can do it, I said, no, keep playing. Let's talk about what you're playing right now. And when you start to come into their world, when you start to meet them where they are, it makes it disarms it. Now it's not school. Now it is a conversation about me. Now it is a conversation about what I like and I love. And now I can use that intrinsic motivation that they have to then turn the conversation to, how does this relate to what you're doing? One of the best things I've seen recently is that some of our students are participating in the North America Scholastic Esports Federation's Minecraft Rube Goldberg competition, completely online, right? One of the students did an amazing project on a pulley system, developed a pulley system completely in Minecraft, right? Oddly had a lesson on the transfer of energy that he was really struggling with. And a couple of days later, when we did our check-in, the assignment was done, and the notes that were left by the teacher was just out of amazement because the student realized what he was doing and turned in his Minecraft project to the teacher. He did it all through Flipgrid, described it, shared it, universal design for learning. Didn't do a paper written assignment or a typed up assignment, but actually used his words and his thoughts and his design to express himself in unique ways. And that's been just two of the ways that we've done it. I've seen, the digital spaces right now, if you paid attention to the news last night, how a game of Twitch, on Twitch last night, a game of Among Us was played, and not just played by anybody, but was played by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and had almost 500,000 people watching it. And what's been going on at our classes is that at lunchtime, between our 5 high schools, we've had kids jumping in to play Among Us, not just with other students from other high schools, but also with their teachers. They're bringing their teachers into these spaces. One of my friends, Angelique Giannis, just did an entire lesson on how to teach persuasive speeches using Among Us. So we're finding these really cool ways to make virtual learning personal.
This is awesome.
I could go off forever on this.
I know you can go on and on. I'm looking over at Todd.
I'm sorry, Todd.
No, you're good. I was making notes too. I love that. So,
yeah, I love that. Okay, so question again was about, schools becoming the network and the future of the brand and the future of what you're being as a node. And then if you want to take in that direction of what James was talking about earlier, which is that parent involvement, I think you touched on that a little bit earlier, Todd, but you go.
Sure. Well, that was fascinating, James. That was, like I said, I took several notes there. So I do feel like throughout this pandemic, whether it be businesses or schools, what we've seen is kind of a push for two polar opposites. There's this push for, completely staying, at home and online completely until, maybe a year or two. And then we have another that is pretend like there is no such thing as a virus and just keep going and going and going just until the wheels fall off, which would be like 3 weeks, by the way. When you get taken down with quarantines and no subs. So we've tried to, and I've explained it to our board here as there is another option. There is another option. Like instead of, waiting the thing out or plowing through it like with no plan, what's fascinating is to see either the businesses or the schools that have been able to innovate rapidly, creatively. So, as far as converting to digital, one of the things that we have done, there are several schools in the district that, or in districts around us that have purchased some type of an online curriculum and said, okay, this curriculum right here was purchased separately, and it is for the online remote learners, and the rest of the kids are going to be taught by their teacher. Well, everybody is still paying the same property taxes, the same, the building maintenance fees, the athletic fees, the book registration, which is what there's technically book rental fees, I guess. So I feel like we're kind of missing the mark there by saying that if you choose remote, you're not even really associated with the school district, because if that's the case, why continue to pay, such high property taxes to maintain the bricks and mortar building? Why wouldn't you divert that to something else? For example, building a much more robust digital, platform where you could actually engage in like play-based therapy or even, telehealth, behavioral telehealth. All of this could be accomplished with just a fraction of what we typically spend each year maintaining our schools. So I think that's a missed mark. Where schools have been successful, obviously, like James had mentioned, is when you kind of embrace it and just say, maybe this situation isn't necessarily the best situation right now. Would everybody love to have their kids, 5 days a week in person, just like normal? Of course we would. However, we're going to make the best of it. And so there are positives to it, such as, making if there is virtual learning, making it personalized. And James hit that on the head. Virtual equals personal. We've been pushing for personalized learning for years. And so, unfortunately now I didn't think this quickly. So when we have been pushing for personalized learning, we were hoping to get more and more teachers to allow students the opportunity to pursue digital learning if it's fascinating them. Now I feel like we have gone full swings the other way. We have tried to get everybody to learn comfortably virtually, and there are still kids that would prefer or are better suited to. So like what is the 100% effective answer? I don't know if anybody knows, but I think it would be a panel full of smarter people than myself that would actually be the ones to figure this out. But I think to basically convert your image from being like this is traditional, this is how things have been, building on a tradition, to saying that we now as an organization are able to pivot very quickly. I think that's the key. That's the key, not only throughout this time, but moving forward.
Okay, I was paying attention, but I have a cat. And so he's just decided that he would come in and join our webinar today.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking over for mine.
Yeah, he likes to cry really loudly. If I keep him out, he'll cry even louder. Anyway, so here's the thing about everything that you just said is that it's obvious that from leadership roles, both of you guys are really thinking through some of these dynamics, and you kind of know where the future is going for you, and you're sort of toggling along what has to be prioritized a little bit at a time. I love that. I think everyone needs to hear that message. They really do. So let me ask you the next question, and I'm coming back to you now, James. What have you been seeing happening in neighboring districts? I know both of you guys talk to others in the education community around you, and you're both leaders, because otherwise you wouldn't be Edu Jedi and aligned with Learning Council and even know about us, because we tend to be like at the edge talking about really forward stuff. So what's happening around you, James? What are you seeing?
Well, I live in a very interesting state. I live in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is unique, we shall say, when it comes to our dynamics as how we've tackled the COVID issue. One thing that I really have to applaud our school district for is that the process to get where we are today and to have the high level of satisfaction, I will say, comparatively, I would argue better than most every school district in our area, is that the planning process started basically as soon as we were closed down. And nothing was off the table. Everything was considered. Every option was on the table. We had some amazingly smart people all there to do that. What's been great about it, though, is that we've been consistent. We decided that we were going to start in a virtual setting for all of our students, and we were going to have these benchmarks and these stop points of, for example, a couple of weeks ago, it was, do we return for second quarter? What does the data tell us? Do we return? I know districts in our area who have started, who have stopped, who haven't embraced one, but they're trying to do all the different models at one time and having their teachers do everything at once. My own children go to a school where my children are learning from home. They have cameras set up in the classroom and there's students actually in the class. Is that really a fair experience for both? Because I know my children sometimes feel that they are almost forgotten because they're physically not there. Versus our model, which is completely virtual and has been consistently saying, we're going to do this, this is our commitment to this. I think that consistency at a time when there's so much uncertainty with everything that's going on has been something that a lot of parents, I think, agree with. And I hope that other districts look to and say, okay, that may be how we need to look at things, rather than we need to do what's best for not just as many kids as possible as we can, and try to, again, help our families through this time with, again, a sense of normalcy and consistency, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and I saw that a lot of districts talking about that early on, like, because, we got a lot of calls from a lot of district leaders at the Learning Council, and the first thing they wanted to know is, what do we do first? I said, take a roll call. You got to virtually convene everyone. You got to just acknowledge they're there and throw out the tether line of digital. You have to just do that, step one.
I do have to say, I've been in the district now for 5 years, and I'm almost sorry to say, it was the first time where we had that number of stakeholders at a table, from not just in district, but we're talking community wide. It was something that was so refreshing. And when you got everybody around the table, it wasn't this big, scary thing either to talk, because again, our mission was still the same. It was just, how are we all going to do it?
Yep. All right. So Todd, a question to you too, as a superintendent, I'm sure you're talking to your peers. What do you see happening around you?
See, I'm going to kind of echo what James said. He says Wisconsin is unique. I'd say Illinois is fairly unique as well. I think Illinois is actually like 3 states comprised. I mean, we have the Chicago area, we have Central, and then, Southern Illinois, which is almost like very charismatic of like the Midwestern Southern states. So the further south you get, I feel like the trend that we're seeing among our neighbors is the push from the community is to get kids back. And some of it is, stuff they're seeing on Twitter or hearing on TV. But, you look at some of the Chicago public schools is completely virtual still. The Chicago suburbs have just now started bringing kids back as a hybrid, and some are already going back to complete virtual. Down in central southern Illinois, schools have been open in person since August. We feel very, very proud of ourselves that we've achieved a full quarter. It certainly hasn't seemed like a quarter. It seemed like 2 years. But as a superintendent, you're also held accountable to, the culture of your community. And
Mhm.
several of these small towns in our area, I mean, they were old mining towns, and so miners are very tough. They go to work, and so kids go to school. So you try to balance that with what the data is saying from internal and countywide metrics, and it's basically a very tiring balancing act, and that's exactly what it has been since August. Is a balancing act. So in our area, we have districts that are completely, I want to say, putting the head down and pretending like we're not in a pandemic and it's business as normal. And they can have at some point over 100 students out of a high school on quarantine, or kids facing their third consecutive quarantine where they have collectively missed almost nearly a midterm's worth of instruction due to being placed on 3 exposure quarantines. So we have that, and then we have others that are kind of locked up tight doing virtual, but then you see the parents that are literally just pulverizing that superintendent and that board, and eventually just a crack in pressure that says, okay, fine, we're coming back in person, do whatever, full blown. It's basically was a cave to pressure. So we're trying to stay on top of it to where we are responding, we are responsive to community needs, but we're also doing it kind of on our terms where we're not just going to, enough people come to board meetings and yell and become upset, and then all of a sudden everybody's back like this thing never existed. So that's pretty much what's going around in our area. So any combination, even within the southern part of our county, we have a special ed cooperative agreement with 4 districts, and there are 4 calendars, 4 models, and these are wild times.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like, and sometimes you step back and look at the national map, it's like we're flying apart at the seams. But I like this, I like the notion that we need to be unique to wherever we are. It's like,
Right.
And I think one of the things that maybe a lot of superintendents and leaders have not been inculcated in is the fact that just because you have somebody in front of you screaming doesn't mean they represent the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to do the mental political calculation, 1 equals X, or maybe 1 equals almost none of the truth. And you have to be able to do that calculation, right? Like I said, just because somebody's screaming doesn't mean they represent the whole. So a lot of school districts have been sharing, they poll a lot. They use a lot of Survey Monkey, right? Send out another poll. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And do it not in a judgmental way, do it in a just, open forum, kind of not, innocuous questioning. But I understand what's happening. So yeah, all right. So back to you, James. Let's talk about the unique use of different pieces now in the landscape, because I know you're an esports guy, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that and kind of what you're doing, because it's the biggest booming area in the entire market. Todd, I don't know if you're doing anything with esports, but I just wanted James to have a little minute to talk about that.
Sure, I'm listening and writing down. Go ahead, Jay. Looking forward to it because we are.
Well, you only gave me a minute to talk about it. We could do a whole segment, obviously.
Yeah, we could do an hour and a half. We could
But
demo.
I will say this, that one of the things that, again, I applaud our school district for, and I know that when we last discussed this, Leilani, kind of there was not a lot of, we didn't see where the end was yet.
Mm-hmm.
Hotspots we found very quickly were not going to be a long-term solution. We knew that from right away. And what I will applaud our school district, and not just our school district, but our local legislators and leaders, elected leaders, we've worked with Spectrum to make them overhaul a lot of their policies with regards to installing internet in the homes. And because of changes in their E-rate law, we have decided as a district that for families in need, we are getting them installed internet service to the home, hardwired actual internet, which has made a huge difference.
Cable, right?
Yep, through Spectrum.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, good job.
That has been a game changer.
Yeah.
But that does not cure the digital poverty issues that we have. And esports is in no way not susceptible to that digital poverty issue as well.
What do you mean by digital poverty? What is the definition of that?
So I've decided that digital divide is a term that isn't necessarily steeped in as much in economics. A divide to me would be on my side of the street, I can get this internet access, and over here on the other side of the street where everything else is equal, my neighbor cannot. Digital poverty is we all live in the same neighborhood. The internet connection gets dropped in, but what can you afford? What do you have access to? I can afford a high-end computer and multiple TVs and multiple devices for my kids versus there's 3 of us in the home, 4 of us in the home, 5 of us in the home. We have my kids' tablets and the PC that we all have to share. Okay. The district, one of the ways we addressed, again, the digital poverty was through these hardwired connections into the home, number one, and number two, making sure that we provided every child and family with a device. Now, if you want to put,
and we've also, I just want to interject on that point because that's true. But you have another circumstance happening. I don't know how national it is, but I know it's big time here in California where we're still shut down and we may never come out of shutdown, right? Like it's wild out here.
It feels like it.
But you know, you have another issue where you have a big cultural divide. So you might have a Latino family, and I have a Latino in my family, but they may have a cultural supposition that even though they have money, that's not a thing because they don't really want everybody spending time on machines. They're
Correct.
very family. They may have 3 generations living in one house and they love it. They buy all of the houses in every neighborhood that have a casita in the backyard because the togetherness is like a big thing. But so they have this thing about like, we don't want everybody on machines all the time. So you have beyond the poverty question, it may be not poverty. It might be a cultural decision.
I'm speaking directly to the poverty issue. So
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that access, because the ways that we've used esports in our district is to, one, we wanted to redefine, we found too, we don't want to just redefine athletic culture, but we're also realizing as esports is growing in the United States, we want to redefine what esports culture looks like in the United States. There is a lot, if you look up, some of these companies have very toxic cultures. Some online experiences are very toxic, but the Anti-Defamation League did an excellent report that did outline the toxicity that's online, but also showing the positives that are coming from these online experiences that kids are having as well. The Anti-Defamation League did a fantastic report on it, and I'm happy to share that report with you and your people listening.
Yeah, you should give us that. We can do a little editorial overview and get it out to the whole news audience.
Absolutely. But the other things too is that we're really using this as a time also realizing that this is having a mental crush on kids, is that we're using gaming and esports as a way to push against the mental health crisis that many of our kids are having. 2 ways that you push against the mental health crisis in simplest terms is number one, through a positive adult interaction. And the second one, most importantly, is through play. And so we're finding these ways to help our kids to play.
Isn't that play, James? The caveat in that play is multi-participant play, right?
Oh,
so they have the reality that they're not stuffed in a box alone.
Correct.
Okay.
So these esports experiences are not one-offs where one child is necessarily playing against one other person. These are a lot of team-based games, or even if they're in a solo queue or playing solo, they're still part of a team that's developing, a culture around points and having to score points in order to get their team to the next level. But the way we've also started to address some of these, again, issues of access and again, the digital poverty is we're finding interesting partners like in our public library. Our public library is saying, we will check out, they have 10 gaming laptops right now that they were using to develop for a teen center. The library is closed right now. We will check these out to you so that we're making a better community connection.
Nice.
It is adjusting our games. We're not married to a league and we're not married to a game or a gaming platform. Again, meet our children where they are. Where are we at right now? Well, let's look at mobile games. Let's look at game titles that that they find really interesting. And while we can't necessarily participate in a whole league, what can we run in-house? What can we do to at least alleviate this lack of being able to socially connect in physical spaces and play in physical spaces, what can we do in our digital spaces? Because these are where our kids are choosing to play by and large. Pew Research tells us 97% of boys and 83% of girls at the teenage years are playing video games. Is it all competitive? No. But we at least are providing these opportunities of participation to kids, which is just as important as saying being able to play basketball or football or be in drama or be in the music program. It's these participatory opportunities, again, around a positive adult interaction and a chance to socialize with their friends. So
Yeah,
that's as short as I can make esports without going into like the whole thing about it.
Yeah, it's a really big thing. And so let's boil it all down, and I'm going to come back to you, Todd. You know, job one is community creation now for the institution. To be an institution, air quotes, is to be a community. And how do you create that online? So in other words, your job is not like, we're just going to deliver and execute on learning. Job one, community. You go, Todd.
Well, yeah, it is, that is a huge piece right now, because you can obviously, any district could provide, like a Zoom or a Google Meet or a Hangout for instruction. What James had referenced about the kids being at home on a laptop watching the exact same instruction is occurring within the classroom with the students that are in person. I can see in a community where that seems equitable. However, the pedagogy is that can't be interactive. How can that possibly be interactive? But these times too, the creating a community is probably going to outweigh what we've known for years and years about pedagogy. One of the things, obviously, that educators know and understand is that kids, James had mentioned the positive, appropriate adult relationship, but also in regards to the actual teaching and learning is engagement and feedback, formative, instantaneous, or at least timely feedback. In the time of COVID, if districts hadn't pivoted to digital, there would be learning packets or learning kits, what some districts call them. They'd be distributed, once every 2 weeks, collected. Paper must sit out for 72 hours before it's touched, graded, and then sit for 72 more hours, then return to the students. You're talking a month between assignments. We know that's not good for, that's not good. That's basically educational malpractice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, creating this community, and what I've seen is teachers that have evolved already instinctively, and they run their classrooms virtually, similar to a classroom in person. So I've had the pleasure of watching, a teacher with the breakout room, and as the kids are entering the breakout room, they're throwing in the chat like, "Good morning, how are you?" So they're doing like bell ringers. They've basically now, is it 100% replacement for in person? No. Do I think we will ever get there? No. Do I think there are certain circumstances? Of course. For example, earlier we had mentioned some of the remnants of this throughout, and we talked about a community. One problem in our community was students that would, for whatever reason, be enrolled or expelled in the neighboring areas and then being enrolled in an alternative school. Well, I see this being the end of alternative schools, because there's, even if a child, because we know what the research says about alternative schools, that they further and feed into the school to prison pipeline. So not only is this the end, hopefully, of alternative schools that promote the school to prison pipeline, but hopefully it's an opportunity to learn that adapt, where students are able to identify, recognize where they do best, and actually choose that. And I think if that's the route of virtual learning, no matter what community, I don't think anybody could argue with that. It's just this shift to being, instead of pursuing it from, a virtual replacement, it has to be an enhancement and an extension of the school.
Totally agree with all of that. That was awesome. Okay, so last question, and then we can sort of wrap up, and all of you attendees raise your hand or ask a question at any time. we started early, so we may end early and release you back into the wild. But let's ask this last question. What have I not asked you? What have I not asked you that needs to be brought up? For our whole national audience who's going to be watching this video later, and it'll get transcribed, we'll pull out the highlights. What do you want to say that maybe no one's talking about right now?
I think that one of the things that we've missed on as we have taken these, I think for a lot of people and for education in general, I think taken some interesting, I said, creative new steps forward. There's still some things we are holding on to. Bell schedules. We are still holding on to this notion that everything still needs to start at 7:15 or 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, and we have to do it 5 days a week. What I'm starting to see now, even talking to some of my best virtual students who came to me because they did not want the opportunity or the chance of having to go back face to face. They were good students in the classroom, but what they're realizing now is that there's a lot more fraying, I guess you could say, that I've seen right now, because some of them are so hyper focused on their schoolwork, being, again, very asynchronous most of the time and being very self-directed in a lot of ways, that they're thinking that they still need to do things 5 days a week, and they need to do it from, again, 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And again, this goes to the education of some of the parents, telling them, take a step back. Think about what your child actually does in school. Talk to them about what their experience was. And what you find out is that they're actually actively learning, hopefully, maybe half of the class time. Sometimes there's passive, they're watching and listening, which is also an important skill to have. But right now, they're all trying to be active every minute of that time that they're used to because of the bell schedule. It's important to say, take a step back and let's reduce that day down. Let's focus in on the activities that they feel that they need to accomplish. What does their playlist tell them that they need to do today? And let's really redefine what that bell schedule can start to look like in minds and specific, again, to what your child needs in that day.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that comes to the heart of what we want to talk about in hybrid logistics, which is we've altered space and time, and now we need to alter space and time in terms of execution. So yeah, block schedules going down to you get 10 minutes of live address. That's all you get. Or 20 max. And you don't try to Zoom meetings, 7-year-olds all day long. Are you crazy? That's not going to work. They're going to go insane. They can't even sit still, right? It's like my cat over here. He's crying, right? They can't, no, I'm losing it. Okay, Todd, wrap us up. What's your thoughts on that question?
Well, I think he nailed it on a couple. And I've also thought a little bit about some of it, going along with the bell schedule is this whole integration of the different content subjects. Still having math class where only math is done, science where, technology should be the great equalizer to bring education, the experience, up to a whole nother level. Boundaries are shattered. The world is at your fingertips. You can be in a basement in central southern Illinois and still access the pyramids of Egypt. So I think this isolation of math by the math teacher, science by the science teacher, hopefully that's something along with the bell schedule that we realize it does not have to stay that way. And another one was the equity piece. So in Illinois and in a lot of states, kids wherever they're born and their parents have been able to purchase a home, whether they purchase it in an area where they can afford it or the tax rate is so high they cannot afford it. So you have these districts that are very affluent, wealthy, and that are 400% funded, and you have districts like ours which are 60% funded. And so you have these unequal opportunities. So why wouldn't anybody be talking about, if virtual learning is to stay, why would a student born in this town have to enroll in that district? What would be just to have the conversation at least to see if this could be the end of this, because I think with some of the past models, we have furthered our inequities. If a child is born to a low-income family in a low-income area with low tax base, low wealth, low-paying teachers, therefore probably 9 times out of 10 less qualified teachers get the least instruction, least support, and they perpetuate this cycle of poverty. We could look at this as like, yes, all it takes is a laptop and a solid connection, and you could hop right on into this affluent metropolitan high school right here from your home. And a lot of times, Sue, let's not forget this, when we talk about the opportunity to stay remote, like right now for health and safety due to the coronavirus, why not health and safety in some of these high crime areas? Like you have these areas where schools are in neighborhoods that are far, far dangerous. Why not allow the option to say, you know what, there's been too much violence going to and from the schoolhouse, therefore my child will be learning remotely. I think those are some possibilities that I think they hold a lot of promise. Do I think that that's 100% pivot, that the world is ready for that? No, but certainly having the conversation about how a virtual digital transition could shatter some of these inequity cycles, especially the ones that are doing more harm than good.
Totally agree with all of that. You just painted this amazing picture, both of you guys, about how structure is going to be questioned in every angle for the next 10, 15, and guaranteed me a job leading the comments about it and the intellectual discourse about it for the next 10 years. I'm going to be 85 before I can ever retire. So yeah, because this isn't going to go away. So you question the structure of the sharing cross district, no more lines, blur everything. You give these teachers over here, those teachers over there, pull it all up to a network status, rebrand the whole thing. It's never going to end. The flexibility demanded is never going to end. And we could have cooties for the rest of our lives. I mean, viruses could be a problem forever. We don't know. We do know we've had an increase of toxicity in the environment, maybe lending itself to other things being more virulent too. So we would never be out of this. So let me just check here questions before we end off. Who said what? Corrine, I don't know if you're able to, you're self-muted on your side, but you had trouble with audio before. So I'm going to ask your question. And Karina Chow asked this. She said, listening over the last 2 days, I keep coming back to feeling that yet again, our educational professionals are tasked with essentially having to find solutions for all the challenges in society. Very daunting and impossible thing. You two are up to it. I can see it in your eyes. You're armored up. So I want to thank you for that. I'm sure that's what Karina meant by this. So thank you, Karina. All right, so it's probably my job to just say thank you at this point in time. I've kept you guys for almost an hour already. And I want to thank both of you guys for first of all, for just being awesome people, and for jumping in there and doing what you're doing. And Todd, my best of luck to you and your family and your daughter.
I think it's just a cold, but you know what? I have to follow protocols too, right?
Yep.
The irony is that things were getting so stressful for a while. I was thinking to myself, my goodness, why couldn't I quarantine? No, I don't want to quarantine.
Yeah, well, stay safe. Up the zinc, right? You're supposed to be taking zinc and whatever other vitamins right now. But bless you. And so thank you guys very much. I think we're still sharing the screen. I want to give a final thanks and shout out to all of our sponsors. Here they are. These companies have been really awesome. We have a lot of backdoor conversations with all of them about their intellectual leadership. And, the companies that generally get behind Learning Council, I'm very impressed with. I'm impressed with what they're doing and how they lead. So this is our moment of goodbyes where I'm going to be releasing you guys back out into the wild. But thank you all so much for being with us today. If it wasn't for you, we would probably not have these, massively intellectual conversations. So thank you, James, and thank you, Todd, for doing what you're doing and who you are. All right, so I'm going to release everyone back into the wild. Thanks for being with us today. This is your host, Leilani Cawthon with the Learning Council, proud Edu Jedi, and see you next time that we get to either be live in your states or we'll be coming back virtual with another level up of the conversation. Thanks and goodbye for now.
Brightspace is a learning management system that makes it easier for you to give each student a more personalized learning experience. And now you can do it with fewer headaches and in less time. It's one platform with a single sign-on to all the tools you need that works on any device and can be used to create a different experience for each grade level. The youngest students can use a portfolio specifically built for non-readers to share what they're learning. As they get older and busier, the activity feed shows them the latest updates to help them keep track of everything that's going on. And no matter what grade your students are in, it's simpler than ever to create lessons and check that content is aligned to standards. You can use materials from publishers, open educational resources, or bring them in directly from Google Drive. The social interface brings it all together in a way that's easy for anyone to use and keeps everyone connected: teachers, students, and their parents. With Brightspace, you'll be able to reach every learner in a way that supports their learning style.